I'm on a quest to find out which class in Baldur's Gate 3 is the strongest. To do this, I am playing through the game with a full party of one class, because I feel this is the best way to show the true strengths and weaknesses of a class without it needing to depend on other classes or cheesing the game. So far, I've already done a run with rogues and clerics, and I found the clerics feel pretty balanced throughout the entire game, and are pretty much unstoppable from Act 1. Where rogues are weak at the start but scale up significantly towards the end game. It is now time to move to my third playthrough, and for this I have chosen to run through the game with a full party of wizards.
Before you think you're about to embark on a journey with most ill-mannered a man, thank you.
As a caster, wizards are squishy and highly dependent on their party to defend them, so they can deal mass damage or cause chaos on the battlefield, with a huge range of control and AoE spells. Unlike clerics, wizards cannot wear armor. They have less health and less movement, and overall are more vulnerable to close range attacks. So they could be an excellent contender of being the weakest class in Baldur's Gate 3. However, they are capable of extremely massive AoE damage, and having a whole party with a large pool of control and damage spells may allow the wizards to decimate enemies before they even reach the wizards to do any damage. So, I hope you guys are comfortable. Grab your popcorn, let's dive right in. Of course, the very first thing to do is we decide on what character we want to make. For this run, I chose my race randomly, removing any previous races that I've played, and we landed on Dragonborn, which could be very cool. I've always wanted to do a Dragonborn run, and the extra breath attacks could add some interesting dynamics. I wanted to name our new Wizard Lizard something well suited to be a Dragonborn. So I took the easy option and googled a random name generator for Dragonborn and came up with Eldrass. Eldrass is a black Dragonborn sage who is a lawful neutral character, which goes pretty well for being a Dragonborn. Overall, he's a pretty great guy. But he is a stickler for the rules and he loves to learn stuff. I'm not very experienced with wizard spells, but I chose what I thought would work well together. For his cantrips, I went with Firebolt, classic, I know, Mage Hand, and Shock and Grasp. For level 1 spells, I went with Mage Armor, obviously for protection, Ice Knife, Magic Missile, Shield, Grease, and Shockwave, just in case people get too close. After choosing a random look for our Guardian, oh my god, not that. We finally were ready to commence on this new adventure. As always, we rushed through the Nautiloid, we helped the Intellect Devour, teamed up with Lae'zel, and rescued Shadowheart, before proceeding to crash the ship into the beach. After landing, I collected Shadowheart, defeated the Intellect Devours, and then leveled up. For Eldrass level 2, I got to choose what subclass he was going to be. At this point, I decided I wanted Eldrass to be a nuke pyromancer, so I decided to make him an evocation wizard. For the additional 2 spells, he learnt Longstrider and Witch Bolt, which kind of goes against the pyromancer build that I was thinking about, but anyway. We collected Astarion.
Isn't such a bad idea.
And then also rescued Gale from the portal.
Hello.
Gale is going to be level 2, and obviously we're going to be running with him in the party, so I now got to choose his subclass. So for Gale, I decided he was going to be a conjurer, ideally giving him spells that allow him to summon additional allies in combat. He already had Mage Armor, Fog, Grease, Sleep, Witch Bolt, and Shockwave. So for his level 2 spells, I completely forgot he was going to be a conjurer and didn't give him Find Familiar, and went with Magic Missile and Shield instead. With that done, we went to the chapel to find Withers. We successfully told the group outside the runaway, but didn't have such good times with the second group inside the building. We hadn't even started the run properly and were already off to a bad start. It took me 3 attempts to defeat these guys, and we hadn't even respec'd everyone to Wizards yet. Let's consider this first fight a warm-up. After defeating the skeletons further in, we got Withers and then respect Astarion and Shadowheart. For Astarion, he obviously should be a Necromancer, so I gave him Bone Chill, Ray of Frost, and Poison Spray cantrips. For his spells at level 1, I gave him Fog Cloud, Grease, Mage Armor, Ray of Sickness, Magic Missile, and Tash's Hideous Laughter. For his level up, I gave him False Life and Thunderwave. As for Shadowheart, since she's usually a cleric, I thought she could be an Abjuration Wizard. For cantrips, she started with Shock and Grasp, Blade Ward, and Cone of Frost. For her level 1 spells, she started with Mage Armor, Protection from Good and Evil, Shield, Thunderwave, Blindness, and Magic Missile, with Enhanced Sleep and Burning Hands added at level 2. Now that was sorted, we went along and rescued Lae'zel from the cage, then continued to the Emerald Grove, which was being sieged by goblins. We initiated combat and quickly realized that Shadowheart and Astarion were basically useless because they had armor on, meaning they couldn't cast any spells. No, she's not wearing them. So I made the tactical decision to reload the game before committing to the fight. Thankfully for Shadowheart, I had found robes on one of the spellcasters we fought in the chapel. Unfortunately for Astarion, I only had found 1 set, so he had to face the goblins in his undies. This was our first combat situation as a full party of wizards, and our spells really showed their strengths here. I made use of all of our wizard spell slots for this fight just to get a good feel for them. After a terrible first round that required 3 of us to kill 1 ranged goblin, I found that Magic Missile was the most effective spell for damaging the goblins. Shadowheart, Eldrass, and Gale did some significant damage with it. I tried some other spells like Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which was somewhat useful, but I wonder if it's worth taking out one enemy's ability to fight when I could choose to do damage to it and potentially take him out permanently instead. After a few more magic missiles, we defeated the goblins without losing anyone from Araden's party. Pretty successful, if I do say so myself.
That was the last of them. Inside! All of you! More may follow!
We looted all we could and then proceeded inside the grove to see Araden and Zevlor having a disagreement. We talked Zevlor down, preventing further fists and faces. Then we agreed to help Zevlor convince the druids to allow them to stay. I leveled up Gale, Shadowheart, and Eldrass to level 3, giving them access to more powerful level 2 spells. Eldrass got Scorching Ray and Misty Step, Shadowheart got Clouded Daggers and Hold Person, and Gale got Flaming Sphere and Clouded Dagger. Thankfully for Astarion, it was only a few more steps before he leveled up and we could get him to level 3 as well. For Astarion, I gave him Melif's Acid Arrow and Web. We continued into the grove, collected Will,
I accept your invitation.
then had a quick word with Volo, who wanted a full report on the attack. Apparently, there was even a dragon in the goblin raid. Can you believe that?
Witnesses noticed red dragon marching at rear.
We continued into the Emerald Grove chambers and convinced Korga to release Arabella.
My grace has its limits.
Then we agreed to help them move the tieflings on. We then did some rummaging through the back rooms of the Druid caves to find a secret note talking about a hidden meeting location. Very suspicious. We proceeded inwards to chat with Nettie to see if she could help us with a tadpole.
A tadpole? A mind flayer tadpole?
Nettie was going to kill us instead, but we convinced her to allow us to live. She revealed that Halson was researching the tadpoles and may have the solution to the problem if we can save him from the goblins. But before we could go to the goblins, we had a little bit more exploring to do in the grove. We proceeded up the hill to find Alfira trying to write a song, so we did the nice thing and help her out. Thankfully for her, this would be the last time we see her in this run. From here, we went towards the Harpies lair. Now, in the rogue run, I had a lot of trouble with the Harpies, but I was confident the wizards would do better with more ranged damage. I first started by lining up my party across the mountain, with Astarion and Gale over the left, up high, and Shadowheart down closer to the right. Eldrass initiated the battle, though Gale somehow appeared at the bottom of the cliff at the start of the combat. Luckily though, it didn't make a huge difference. The wizards dominated this fight, mainly because we had some great saving throws against the singing. Every time the Harpies started singing, someone was able to break the song with Magic Missile, allowing everyone to do some massive damage with Burning Hands, Thunderwave, Magic Missile, and even a couple of good firebolts were thrown, allowing us to easily take them out.
You fight well.
We looted what we could from the Harpies and then continued onwards. Up here, please. What? What? We were confronted by Raphael for the first time, who invited us by force to his House of Hope. He offered us a way out of our tadpole predicament, but we told him where he could stick that deal.
That's when you'll come knocking on my door.
With the Harpies done and Raphael behind us, we continued on. We left the Emerald Grove and then we found this cave with a small group of goblins in it, and then we proceeded to absolutely demolish them with our spells. As we pressed on, we found the dying dwarf and his absolute followers and convinced them to avenge the dwarf's death and take on the owlbear.
You're right, sir. The beast must be destroyed.
In the owlbear cave, I found the Saluna chest and forgot how to open it and took a stupid amount of damage trying to open it, having to waste an unnecessary amount of potions healing myself. I eventually worked out how to open it, but let's not talk about that anymore. We made our way to the owlbear and I attempted to sneak up on it. Only wizards aren't very good at sneaking and we all seen quite quickly. Eldrass tried to intimidate the owlbear, but apparently there isn't anything intimidating about a wizard, so we had a fight on our hands. I had Astarion cast Web in attempts to discourage the owlbear from charging us, which technically did work as it went for the other two cultists instead, putting the owlbear out of range for most of our attacks, leaving me to have to traverse the web to get in range. I had Gale summon a Flaming Sphere as well, but otherwise we were too far away to do any damage to the mother bear on the first turn. Thankfully, the cultists landed Command Hold, which stopped the owlbear from moving, allowing us to finally get in range to attack it, making up for the lost tempo. With everyone in range, we peppered it with magic missiles, Scorching Rays, and Fireball, while the Flaming Sphere also got in close enough to attack. Although it did take Astarion out, we were able to finish it off with little difficulty. With the owlbear mother dead, we allowed the cub to live and watched in horror as it devoured its mother. We exited the cave and then crossed over the river to make our way to Karlak and recruited her into the group, and agreed to help her defeat her pursuers, the Paladins of Tyr. We made our way up the hill, but before we fought them, my intention was to trade with a trader outside. However, I clicked the aggressive, "We are going to take your supplies" option, which initiated combat.
Oh, you fool. We'll destroy you.
Thankfully, Eldrass got to go first, and we were standing on an edge of a cliff. Let's play a quick game called What Spell Should He Cast? If you said Thunderwave, you would be correct. Oh man, that was gold. Thunderwave delivered such outstanding results. When the next enemy came rushing at the door, we just had to follow it up with another. With 2 of the 3 enemies defeated, only the Paladin remained. He smartly decided to go around the front of the building instead of through the door. This allowed me to cast Grease and Web in attempts to slow him down, but that didn't stop him from jumping past the obstacles and one-shotting Astarion and Gale. Thankfully, we had him surrounded, and with some epic spells from the remainder of the team, we finished him off pretty easily. After eluding the toll building, we continued on. We fought the gnolls in the middle of the road, making great use of Shockwave, Acid Splash, Magic Missile, and Cloud of Daggers, and then we long rested.
The stink of Avernus. Advocatus Diaboli.
We prevented Will from killing Karlach, which, as we all know, doesn't have good consequences for Will.
You really are no devil, are you?
And so the next day we decided that we'll go and help the Zhentarim guys, trapped in the cave by the other gnolls. I attempted to sneak in, however, we were clumsy yet again, and were caught before I could open with a good spell. Despite the misstep, we were in a really good position, requiring the gnolls to climb up the hill to us. We managed to do a great deal of damage to them and to slow their progress by casting Grease on the steps. This didn't stop one of them from reaching us, but allowed us to do some great opening damage with Cloud of Daggers on the cliff. My intention was to try and use Thunderwave to get them back if they came too close, but just before they closed in on us, a cutscene started, dialoguing with the gnoll leader. After a couple of really good successful rolls, we dominated her mind with some amazing throws and convinced her to fight on our side, which she immediately one-shot one of the other gnolls. With the help of the gnoll leader, we managed to defeat them really easily, despite Eldrazi being knocked down once. With combat done, we started dialogue with the gnoll pack leader, who wasn't really happy with the amount of flesh that she got and wanted more. We managed another couple of fantastic rolls, and we convinced her to finish herself off.
She tears out her own throat.
A job well done, I'd say. We went to the cave and spoke to the Zhentarim smugglers, who told us that their hideout was nearby and we should go and catch up with them. There might actually be something of worth for us there, so we'd go and check it out. We proceeded back down the hill towards a group of sleeping hyenas. We quickly attacked and dispatched them with a stack of Cloud of Daggers, spells, and thunder waves. We continued on and we could smell smoke in the air, so we followed our nose, hoping to find dinner. But all we found was a burning inn instead. We proceeded inwards to be the heroes that we were destined to be. Well, that didn't work out very well. So after a short time searching, we jumped through one of the windows. We rescued Councillor Floric and Benarin from the burning building and proceeded to loot the kitchen for all its food. I know they say not to take anything valuable with you in a house fire, but I can't resist fresh pork sausages. Floric asked us to help save Duke Ravengard and rewarded us with this new staff, perfect for Eldrazi's future build. We continued on and made our way to the Zhentarim hideout. After we got in without being blown up, we purchased and released the painter. After looking around a little bit more, there wasn't much else for us to do here, but we'll be back. That night at camp, Will revealed to us that Duke Ravengard was his father and that we must help him. Unfortunately though, Will were also visited by an unexpected guest, Will's devil patron, Mizora. Will still refused to kill Karlach, and so as punishment, he was turned into a devil. I guess you could say he has devilish good looks now. We continued to decimate a village. As we entered, we leveled up, but we were also surrounded by goblins at the entrance. We managed to convince them to let us pass, as I would rather level up and then fight them. By level 4, Eldrazi got an extra cantrip, Acid Splash. His additional spells were Shatter and Darkness. And at level 4, we could choose his first feat, which for Eldrazi, I gave him the ability improvement, increasing intelligence to 18 and constitution to 16. For Gale, his additional cantrip was Shocking Grasp. Additional spells were Misty Step and Darkness. And his feat was Warcaster. Astarion, his cantrip was Shocking Grasp. For spells, he got Shatter and Cloud of Daggers. And his feat was Spell Sniper with Eldritch Blast. And lastly, for Shadowheart, her cantrip was Bone Chill with extra spells Knock and Scorching Ray. Her feat was Ability Improvement with Intelligence and Constitution, same as Eldrazi. So after leveling up, I proceeded to climb the ladder to be next to the goblins. And you guessed it, Thunderwave the goblins off the building. Then it was a ranged battle with the goblins across the street, which of course we made quick work of. As we proceeded in, we met with a group of ogres, including a really intelligent one.
Not food, friend.
We tried to convince Lump to join us, however, we failed to convince him to help us. He was a lot smarter than he looked. We cleaned up the other 3 goblins around that side of the town before heading to the group surrounding the windmill. I decided to sneak up with them, taking my usual approach of jumping up on the edge to the side and launching a surprise attack. The fight went well enough. We had only killed a couple before they surrendered and all ran away. We rescued Barkus from the windmill and looted what we could before heading to the other side of the village. We killed a sleeping bugbear, then proceeded to a shed where we heard some strange noises. Busted in the door to witness a bugbear and an ogre doing the nasty. They were not happy and clearly not inviting us to join in, and so they attacked us.
Oh, smash you!
This fight was great. I opened with Grease, which caused the bugbear to slip over. Then followed it up with Web, which enwebbed them both. I then followed up with Shadowheart to create water, and then Eldras's Witch Bolt, which electrified the water, doing some insane damage to the ogre. When the ogre and bugbear tried to leave the shed, Eldras used Thunderwave and pushed them back into the water. Shadowheart cast Cloud of Daggers in the doorway, preventing them from leaving without taking damage. Though this didn't stop the bugbear from killing Eldras, at this point the fight was over. The bugbear was finished with a magic missile, and the ogre was finished by the Cloud of Daggers. So we long rested, and the next day I decided I'll go down the well and face the spiders. We entered and sneaked our way in, looted what we could, and prepared ourselves for an ambush against the spiders and ettercaps. After successfully finishing them, we proceeded to the Queen Monarch's chamber and prepared for battle. After setting everyone up, I started combat with a firebolt to the web bridge she was standing on, halving her health in one hit. I thought we were off to a great start, however the following turns didn't go so well. The other spiders and the Queen Monarch eventually cornered us and did significant damage. With a Star and a Shadowheart down, I went for a desperation move to use Thunderwave and knock her off the edge, which was a massive success. Until it wasn't. The GM decided they didn't want the Monarch to fall into the abyss, and she reappeared at the top of the cliff. Well, you can imagine the outcome of this attempt. This time I let gravity do more work for me. I started combat by firebolting the web bridge she was standing on to get some massive damage off. We then thunderwaved the smaller spiders that came up to us and finished them off with Shadow Beam. And this all happened before the matriarch came. The group of spiderlings was problematic. I forgot to destroy the eggs, and so they surrounded Gale and were threatening to kill him. Thankfully, he dodged most of their attacks. When the spider matriarch phased up to us, we once again let gravity do the work and thunderwaved her from the edge, ensuring she landed on the map this time. This thunderwave combined with the fall damage brought her down to less than a quarter health. Shadowheart used Cloud of Daggers to deal with a group of spiderlings, allowing Gale to Misty Step and thunderwave the last mature spiders off the edge, finishing it off. This left the queen and one last spiderling. Of course, the phased spider warped up to us again and missed her attack against Shadowheart, allowing Eldras to thunderwave her off the edge once more, this time finishing the job. Leaving only one spiderling for everyone to finish off with Shock and Grasp. The lesson from this is don't bother with anything else but Thunderwave. With that taken care of, it was time to head to the swamp. We ventured into the swamp and ran into Auntie Ethel and these two brothers bailing her up. Something about their missing sister. Something seemed off about Ethel, so we sided with the brothers and called Ethel out, who wasn't very happy and ran away.
Bye-bye now.
We tried to convince the brothers not to go after her, but there was no stopping them. We explored the swamp and I decided I would first pursue the meeting place that was mentioned in the note to Korga. We jumped over the gap and prepared to fight. Overall, this fight was pretty simple. We had plenty of fire spells to do devastating damage to the wood ward, and with multiple magic missiles and burning hands and one flaming ball, we defeated the party pretty easily. We collected another note along with a treasure, and we learnt that Korga was betraying the grove, converting it into the Shadow Druid grove. Obviously, we weren't going to let that happen, but first we had to deal with Auntie Ethel. We made our way to Auntie Ethel's hut, but first we had to deal with the Bloodcaps. I underestimated their strength and realized I had to be a bit more tactical against them than I originally thought. They did some big damage to everyone. We even had Asterion and Gale dead at the same time, but we managed to defeat them with some good use of our spells. With the Bloodcaps dealt with, we long rested and proceeded Auntie Ethel's hut. We walked into her hut and we found her with Myarina. Ethel was forcing Myarina to eat a lot of food, obviously to fatten her up, but we weren't going to let that happen to her.
One more bite and this pie is gonna come back up to say hello.
We let Myarina know that Ethel had gotten her brothers killed, and Myarina called the deal with the hag off. The hag wasn't very happy with this and teleported Myarina away and revealed her true form. We had a fight on our hands. Ethel turned invisible. However, we used Create Water to reveal her location, then followed up with Ray of Frost and Witch Bulb. However, this was all really for nothing as Ethel ran away. We looted her house of all her food and potions, then proceeded after her. Inside her lair, Ethel warned us not to pursue it further, and then ran away again. We spoke to the door guard and convinced it to let us through. Then we walked down to the next room, which was full of patrolling masks of Ethel. We defeated them without taking too much damage, and then proceeded to the immensely trapped bramble of branches, where I had a terrible time navigating everyone through, taking a stupid amount of damage, wasting a stupid amount of potions along the way. After making it all the way down, it was time to confront Ethel. We snuck our way in, almost made it all the way to the switch when combat started. Ethel started combat by setting the cage on fire and divided herself up with illusions. I started by using a Ray of Frost on the cage to put the fire out, and then worked on the removing the clones from the battlefield. I had a feeling the real one was beyond my reach, so I made my way close to her while attacking all the others. However, I should have put more emphasis on getting rid of the clone, as ignoring them allowed them to do some significant damage to the party. After closing in on the real one and damaging her, Ethel cast another illusion spell, disguising herself as Myarina, bringing them close together to try to confuse me. I realized that Ethel and Myarina didn't change their initiative order, so I doubled down and used Cloud of Daggers behind what I thought was a real Ethel and had Eldrath Thunderwave into the cloud. Thankfully, I was right and did some great damage. I then followed up with Web, which trapped Ethel into the cloud of daggers, and when she did eventually leave, I used a Void Bulb to suck her back into the cloud. At this point, Ethel tried pleading with us, offering us power and letting her live in return. We refused and vowed to finish her off. This was where my plan fell apart. Ethel made clones of herself again, and instead of targeting them, I tried to rush Ethel. This was a mistake as each of the clones used Hold Person on my party and slowly picked them off. I tried again following the same opening as last time, using Ray of Frost to stop the burning. However, this time I put more emphasis on removing the clones from the fight by simply hitting them with more spells that could target multiple enemies like Eldritch Blast and Magic Missile. I memorized Ethel's initiative roll, which meant I could always knew which one was the real one, even when she tried to pretend to be Mayrina again. With all the clones taken care of by Magic Missile, we were free to lay into Ethel with maximum firepower. I used the Web and Cloud of Daggers trick again, and then used Witch Bolt on her, which was a genius move. The attack triggered her next illusion, which she turned invisible and made clones again. But we knew exactly where she was, as the Witch Bolt was still attached to her. Shadowheart used Create Water in a new location, which revealed her and weakened her lightning. With another bombardment of spells like Thunderwave and Cloud of Daggers, and a final Witch Bolt attack, we finally finished her off. After a long rest, it was time to head back to the Emerald Grove. Once we entered the grove, we confronted Korga about the letter we found and the secret communications with the Shadow Druids. Almost immediately, the Shadow Druids appeared. They were pissed that we foiled their plan, but they had no intention of backing down. We detected Korga's thoughts and managed to use her own doubts to undermine her confidence in the Shadow Druids, quickly converting her back to our side.
You've no power over me!
With Korga on our side, we made very quick work of these 3 Shadow Druids. Korga was in a bit of a pickle. She realized that what she had done was wrong, but at least she had the decency to admit it. But she was also Halsin's problem now. With that taken care of, the Rider Thorns were stopped, and the Tieflings were once again safe from being forced out onto the road, which Zevlor was glad for. We were pretty strong now, and I was feeling pretty confident. So it was time to go and tie off some loose ends. We went back to the Zhentarim cave. I said I would be back, didn't I? Although Astarion had other ideas. And when I tried to cast Firebolt, he pathed downstairs and was intending to ignite the explosives from the ground level. Thankfully, I managed to stop him. The Zhentarim didn't stand a chance, especially not against gravity and the gigatons of explosive they'd set up for themselves. After finishing off the remaining Zhentarim on the front of the cave, I snuck around to the back. I grouped up along this bridge and launched my attack on the remaining Zhentarim. Using control spells, I prevented the wolves from getting close and simply outdamaged the ranged attackers with all of our spells. With all the Zhentarim taken care of, I looted all I could find and moved on. I had one more loose end I wanted to take care of, and that was the ogres. Initially, I split myself up in 2 groups, intending to be able to push them back and use control spells. However, this backfired when Gale was taken out by Shadowheart's friendly fire. Having the 2 groups separated meant I didn't have a single target for them to damage, and I couldn't funnel them all into one control point. But this time, I grouped my party through the wrecked building and launched my attack. With 2 clouds of daggers cast, plus multiple thunder waves, they couldn't get close to us, allowing me to continually push them back, doing significant damage. With the ogres taken care of, it was finally time to take on the goblin camp. I was unsure what approach I was going to take, so I thought I'd just let things happen as they went. I used the Illithid powers to allow me passage and proceeded inwards. As we neared the main camp, we started seeing visions of the Chosen Absolute, our future target. After the artifact saved us from the Absolute control, we proceeded into the camp. We spoke to these goblins who were harassing the Owlbear cub, telling us that they had invented a game called chicken chasing. We pointed out that this wasn't a chicken, but they didn't seem to care.
Got feathers, don't it? A beak?
They wouldn't let us play until after we'd dealt with the bard, which happened to be Volo performing. We paid too much attention to him, which made him perform pretty badly, and he was taken away and locked up. But at least the goblins were happy to play chicken chasing now. I drank a potion of animal talking and spoke with the owlbear before the game started and convinced him to fight back.
Eat, bite.
Which was a mistake as he started fighting all the goblins and he was massively outnumbered. I wasn't about to let the owlbear die based on my suggestions, so we stupidly joined in the fight. We were in a very terrible position, completely surrounded. Luckily, the owlbear was able to take some of the attention away from us. Shadowheart opened with a great thunder wave on the group in the main area, grouping them together and allowing Gale to follow up with Cloud of Daggers and Astarion to finish the mock with Shatter. I then had these 3 climb up on the ledge to get some kind of high ground advantage. I had Eldrath use Misty Step to get on high ground as well. The Ogre was a problem though. It was able to hit Shadowheart from the ground. By the end of the second round, Astarion had been taken out by an archer and Gale and Eldrath were on half HP. Thankfully, Eldrath managed to do a massive thunder wave on the goblin archers up with him, putting them down on ground level. Gale followed up with Cloud of Daggers, damaging and weakening another 2 goblins, while Shadowheart survived another attack from the Ogre, thanks to the Arcane Ward. Unfortunately though, the owlbear was killed, making this whole situation for nothing. And things were only getting worse as Shadowheart and Astarion were now both knocked out. But I had a genius idea to have Gale throw a greater healing potion at both of them, reviving them with half health, and then jumping away from the ogre. But the ogre had its turn before Shadowheart and took her down again. And then not long after, Astarion was also taken out. It was now time to fight back. Eldrass used Shatter on the 2 archers in the distance, while Gal used Thunderwave on the 2 melee goblins in his face, which left only 3 goblins and the ogre remaining. Shadowheart and Astarion though were still down. Eldrass finished off another archer with Firebolt, while Gale revived Astarion. The ogre had given up on Shadowheart and proceeded to knock Astarion down again. Thankfully, Gale landed a good Witch Bolt on the ogre, allowing Eldrass to throw a potion at Shadowheart. The ogre was now out for blood and finished Astarion off. However, this was to its own demise. With Astarion dead, Shadowheart could now use Clouded Daggers on the goblin and ogre without fear of hurting him. Clouded Daggers combined with the narrow pathways, the ogre's path was blocked and stuck in the Clouded Daggers, allowing us to finish off the ogre easily. We finished off the remaining goblins outside and long rested. The next day, I realized we were pretty close to level 5, so I tidied up the other goblins on the outer camps just for the extra XP. It wasn't enough to level us up, but as soon as we walked inside, we just got enough XP to get to level 5. We used our lifted powers to get past the guards and then leveled up. For Eldrass's level 5, we finally had access to some more real firepower. So I gave him Fireball, duh, and Lightning Bolt. For Astarion, I gave him Raise the Dead and Vampiric Touch. I actually completely reset Gale for this as I wanted him to have Find Familiar. Most of his other spells were the same. For his level 5 though, I gave him Lightning Bolt and Sleet Storm. Finally, for Shadowheart, I gave her Glyph of Warding and Fireball. We proceeded inside and spoke to the Goblin Priestess who branded Eldrass. I hope we don't regret that later, but it did reveal some secrets about the Absolute. Afterwards, we spoke to Minthara. She probed our mind about the Grove. To prevent her from probing our mind too much about the Grove, we said that we would help her torture the captives to find out where the Grove was to get her off our back. We made our way to the prisoner and told the Goblin that we would take over torturing him, but instead, we attacked the Goblins. Thankfully, we managed to kill them before they ran away for help. But as we were releasing the guy, we were accused of stealing. Thankfully though, the Goblin didn't pay attention to the dead bodies. We attacked the guard and killed this one before he could raise the alarm as well. We then released the prisoner. He told us that Halsin had turned into a bear and he might still be alive before he ran off. We made our way into the dungeon and rescued Halsin from the goblins. We easily dispatched all the goblins in the room. Then Halsin agreed to help us, provided we helped him with the goblins. Of course we'll destroy more goblins. We left and then went back to Minthara. Now our plan was to lure Minthara and the goblins into a trap at the Grove. So I revealed the location to her, leading her to believe that I would betray the tieflings. We promptly went back to the Grove and warned Zevlor, obviously not telling him that it was us that revealed the location, and he rallied the troops. We long rested, and in the morning we climbed to the top of the battlements. After setting everyone up and getting their spells ready, I blew the horn, triggering the battle. Thara tried to commune with us to initiate the backstabbing she thought we were going to do, but we backstabbed her instead.
Traitor! You think you can stand against me and the Absolute? I'll dissect you.
On the first round, Eldrass opened with a Fireball, doing some great damage and wiping out a couple of goblins. Shadowheart doubled down with Fireball as well, blowing up the goblins with the explosives strapped to their backs that were standing on top of the oil traps in the middle of the battlefield. Meanwhile, Astarion and Gale were contending with a spider that had jumped up to them. Neither of them were able to make much of an impact. Gale couldn't Thunderwave the spider away, and Astarion summoned a zombie to help out. By the end of the round, another spider had jumped up to Eldrass and Shadowheart's side, causing them problems as well. This combined with the ogre throwing goblins up to the top was starting to get me worried. The goblins did a decent amount of damage to Astarion and Gale, and Eldrass was left quite hurt from the spider, also unable to Thunderwave it away. And by its next turn, the spider took Eldrass down. Shadowheart was the only one free to throw a fireball to stop another group of goblins trying to blow up the main gate. But in doing so, she ended up destroying the gate anyway. Gale used Clouded Daggers, doing some great damage to the spider on his side, with Astarion casting Thunderwave to throw the goblins and his zombie off the edge, leaving the spider remaining. Thankfully, the Clouded Daggers killed the spider on their side. Shadowheart revived Eldrass with a thrown potion, getting him back into the fight. Gale and Astarion were too far away to make an impact to Eldrass and Shadowheart's spider, so I used them to slow the goblins and the ogre down. For Eldrass and Shadowheart, they were still having trouble with the spider, not managing to shove it off or do any significant damage, allowing it to take Shadowheart down. Meanwhile, Astarion and Gale managed to kill a couple more goblins and do some more damage to Minthara. Enemies were now getting through the gate and climbing to the top. Thankfully, Eldrass managed to finally kill the spider with a great magic missile attack. Gale cast Clouded Daggers top of the ladder, which worked perfectly to kill the bugbear that had climbed up. Astarion summoned his first skeleton, and Eldrass was able to revive Shadowheart. With everyone back alive and no enemies in our faces, it was time to rain down fire on the remaining enemies. One of the goblins tried to climb up the ladder, but of course it didn't end well. However, one of our allies tried to climb down the ladder. Not ideal. The remaining enemies didn't even attempt to climb the ladder, leaving them easy pickings for us to finish off. With Clouded Daggers, Grease, and a well-placed Void Bowl, the Skeleton Archer finished off the Ogre, leading Minthara on her own, who finally decided to Misty Step up to Eldrass and Shadowheart. However, it was too late for her. Eldrass finished Minthara off with his Acid Breath. finishing the fight once and for all. We absorbed the tadpole from Minthara, which gave us more power. When Astarion got a whiff of that, he also wanted to partake as well.
My only complaint is that you didn't want to share. I wouldn't mind indulging myself.
Hey guys, I thought I'd just take a moment to thank you guys for watching this video so far. And if you have been enjoying it so far, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more Baldur's Gate 3 content and more medieval fantasy RPG content like this and videos like this, subscribe to my channel and become one of the legends. Anyway guys, let's continue with the video. With Minthara defeated, the Grove and the Tieflings were finally safe. And that night we celebrated. After a few drinks with everyone, Shadowheart and Eldra spent a nice night looking at the stars. A very nice night indeed. Now that Minthara was taken care of, it was time to finish off the remainder of the Absolutes chosen. We stormed the Saluna Temple and laid waste to the goblins at the front door, before having a very annoying battle with the Goblin Priestess. I attempted to place too many control spells at the main entrance, making the enemies not want to move through. So once I removed them, we made quick work of the goblins. We rescued Volod and then charged Draw Ragslin's chambers. I tried to sneak in, but we're wizards. We aren't that sneaky. Not that we needed to be, we absolutely wiped the floor with the Absolutist. I had Draw Ragslin locked down with a cloud of daggers and grease, and when he tried to leave, I thunderwaved him back in. We then finished him off spectacularly with a combo of Create Water and Lightning to do some massive damage to him. With Draw taken care of, we finished off the stragglers, looted what we could, we long rested, and that night Shadowheart and Lae'zel were at each other's throats.
Walk away. Now.
We managed to quell the fight until the morning, but Shadowheart had other ideas, and tried to kill Lae'zel in her sleep. We couldn't get them to see reason, so we had to choose, and unfortunately for Lae'zel, we chose Shadowheart. I did try to knock Lae'zel out in an attempt to not have to kill her, but that also just removes her from the party anyway. Volo also offered to inspect Eldras's eye and remove the tadpole, which, as you would expect, didn't go well.
Your eye plops down into the mud.
Drat!
However, with the new eye replacement, we now had the ability to see invisible enemies, super handy for fights to come. We then made our way to the Githyanki Creche. Along the way, we ran into this group of Githyanki being led by the Kithrak Moss. When we approached, he threatened to kill us. However, we convinced him that we would be useful in finding this weapon they were looking for. Obviously, we didn't tell them that we had said weapon. After they left, we continued on to the monastery trail. We spoke to Lady Essa, who asked us to steal a Githyanki Ed. We said we might consider it. We then went to take on the Death Shepherds. I tried to start in a hiding spot to gain an advantage on them, but just as I had finished buffing the party, we were suddenly spotted. Traditionally, I've had trouble with this fight, simply because the Shepherds are level 6 and continuously revive each other. Thankfully, this fight was made easy with all of our AoE and control spells. I focused on doing as much damage to the Death Shepherds as possible, while trying to keep the ghouls away, with Shockwave and Cloud Daggers. By the third round, we managed to kill one of the Shepherds without losing anyone. So that was a great start. However, the other Shepherd revived in the full health. Luckily, they were now grouped together nicely, perfect for some AoE attack. Gale was taken out, but it was already too late for the Shepherds. We burned them to ash with a couple of well-placed fireballs and scorching rays, allowing us to easily deal with the remaining ghouls. We continued down to the Temple of Lathander, fought the kobold inside. This was an absolute disaster case of a battle, but we won, so that's all that matters. We battled the Grimishka. Though they turned out to be craftier than they looked, I thought this was a perfect trap for them, but they somehow opened the door and went around my trap. Despite their reactions to magic, we beat them with very little difficulty. We climbed to the top and beat the eagles and then collected the ritual weapons to allow us access to the Dawnmaster crest. We long rested, and that night Karlak mentioned she was struggling with her infernal engine, something we needed to address if we wanted to keep her around. The next day it was time we took on the Creche. I went downstairs and tried walking up to the front gates, hopefully able to convince the guards to let us pass without revealing the weapon. This didn't work, and the following battle was not a good one. They dominated us by getting up and close and doing massive damage. I figured they weren't going to let us pass easily, so I decided to start combat on my own terms. With a great opening of Fireball, I drew their attention into one place, allowing me to cast Cloud of Daggers and Shatter to get some great initial damage, killing 2 of the guards from the outset. From there, the remainder of the fight was a walk in the park. Eldrass Misty stepped up behind the archer and Thunder waved him off the edge, and the second ended his turn in the Cloud of Daggers, basically finishing himself off, allowing everyone to finish off the archer easily. We proceeded in and spoke to Gustil, who said she could remove the tadpole with the Zaythisk. So Eldrass sat down on the machine, and underwent the process. Eldrass managed some amazing saving throws and survived the Zaythisk trying to kill him. After it exploded, he unlocked the ability to use the illicit powers as a bonus action. Gustil wasn't happy the device was destroyed.
No! The Zaythisk! What have you done?
And left to gather some help to conduct further research on us. She locked the door on the way out, so we knew this was a trap. We set up the room and had the skeleton archer summoned. so I figured that we should get Scratch and the Raven out to fight as well. Then we used Eldritch Blast on the door, initiating combat. I opened with Cloud of Daggers on the door, then threw a fireball through, doing some great damage. I intended for Eldrass to do the same, but then when I tried to cast Fireball, Eldrass pathed right into the Cloud of Daggers, taking himself down. After removing the Cloud of Daggers, Scratch was able to revive him, but this allowed the Gith to storm into the room. They had cast Hold Person on Gale and kept us from using our spells with Counterspell, preventing us from doing any significant damage. And that's when one of them attacked the explosive tank in the corner, blowing everyone up, including Gale and Astarion. Eldrass had been taken down as well, leaving only Shadowheart and our summons alive. Skeleton Archer came in clutch, taking out Gustil, which was the biggest issue with her counterspell. With her gone, Scratch revived Eldrass, and with Shadowheart's Cloud of Daggers, we defeated the last remaining Gith with very little difficulty. Unfortunately, I did have to get Withers to revive Astarion and Gale, but overall, not a bad outcome. We then went into the hatching chamber. Astarion and Shadowheart leveled up, so for Astarion's level 6, he got the ability to summon 2 undead with his Raise Undead spell, and I gave him Lightning Bolt and Haste. For Shadowheart's level 6, she unlocked Project Ward, which allowed her to use her Arcane Ward on someone else as a reaction. For spells, I gave her Raise Dead and Haste. After speaking to the Hatchery Master and failing to convince him to give me the egg, I decided that I would attack these guys also, which proved to be quite difficult. Vash Kokun had Counterspell, which stopped our most effective spells, allowing the guards to close in on us and kill us. After a couple of failed attempts, starting from the middle, I decided I would try and fight them from the doorway, preventing them from using the pools against us. This time, I had much better success, defeating them quite easily. This allowed Eldrass and Gale to level 6. For Eldrass, he got access to Potent Cantrip, and I gave him Haste and Cloud of Daggers. For Gale, he also got Potent Cantrip, and I gave him Fireball and Haste. We collected the Githyanki egg, and then went back to the main halls. We witnessed the trainer execute one of his pupils, but I didn't really want to start a fight here, simply because they were children, so I thought I would move on. I entered the room to witness Kithrak, Zhentarim, and the Inquisitor Wargaz having a dispute about the weapon. I wasn't interested in simply handing it over, and I thought I might as well continue our assault. After the Gith left, I attacked Kithrak and the wolves, only to have them absolutely destroy us after their allies in the hallway joined them. So I decided I will go back to the main hall and remove any reinforcements before trying again. I attempted to start the fight from the middle of the halls, but I quickly was surrounded and overwhelmed again by all the guards in the halls. So after reloading, I decided to start from one end and remove the weakest ones first. This also allowed Astarion and Shadowheart to spawn skeleton archers, which were a massive help in defeating the remaining guards on the other end of the halls. After finishing up all the Gith outside, I went back into the room with Kithrak, Zhentarim, and launched my assault. It was a little tough, but with my skeleton archers and massive lightning blast, we managed them pretty easily. With her taken care of, it was time to take on the Inquisitor. I went down to his chambers where he was surrounded by guards. However, I had no intention of talking to him. I set everyone up around him and opened fire against one of the guards. My strategy was to remove the archers and mages as quickly as possible. We killed one of the archers, and then the Inquisitor teleported himself close to one of the mages, trying to set up his psychic link. This is perfect for Gale and Eldrass, who both landed a massive fireball, killing the mage and doing some good damage to the Inquisitor. Now there were only 3 enemies remaining, a warrior, a mage, and the Inquisitor. And we had 4 wizards, 3 skeleton archers, a crow, and Scratch. I think we're going to be fine. The warrior tried to cast a spell, but with everyone's psionic backlash, he died before he could cast it, allowing Eldrass, Astarion, and Shadowheart to keep doing damage to the Inquisitor. Once Gale had finished off the last mage, the Inquisitor was easily finished off by Eldrass and Astarion. After defeating Wargaz, Vlaakith presented herself to us, inviting us to defeat the enemy within the artifact. We declined, which she didn't seem very happy about, but oh well.
And you!
With the Creche more or less destroyed, we went further into the temple and found the Blood of Lathander, which looked great and would have been great for my cleric run, but it was useless to us now. With that behind us, it was now time to head to the Underdark. We made our way back to the Saluna Temple, defeated the ogre guarding the entrance, solved the puzzle, and entered the Underdark. We proceeded down through the broken temple to the statue garden, where we had to face our toughest challenge yet, the Spectator. After the first round of it doing some big damage to everyone and paralyzing Gale, I was a little bit worried. However, I managed to turn things around. I had the skeleton archers attack the first awakened drow, getting them into the fight. Then I had Shadowheart cast Create Water on the Spectator, which was a genius move. On the second turn, Gale was taken down, but Astarion finally got a proper turn and cast Lightning Blast, doing some great initial damage to the Spectator. On the next round, I had one of the skeleton archers wake up another drow, and then Shadowheart revived Gale, who was immediately taken out again by the Spectator. Not a problem though. Eldrass used Lightning Blast on the Spectator, doing 34 damage, bringing it to half health, and then we doubled down with Astarion, doing a whopping 66 damage casting Lightning Blast, leaving the Spectator with 8, allowing the skeleton archer to finish the job. Perfectly done. We pressed on and stumbled as a bullet dug underneath us, but thanks to a turn-based mode, we were able to sneak up on it and do some massive damage, combining all our spells together, finishing it without a worry. After the Bulleen, I discovered a place I'd never seen before. and jumped down this hole and discovered a group of Kuo-toa worshipping what seemed to be a red cap covered in blood. We revealed that Buell wasn't a true god to the Kuo-toa, which Buell didn't like. He offered us power, but we attacked him instead. Luckily, I had everyone set up earlier, preempting this fight, and we easily took him down. The Kuo-toa were impressed and began worshipping us instead.
We know you by your true name, Maglumpa.
Our first command was to ask them to gather an army. We left this area and went back to the main Underdark, and spoke to the group of Duergar searching for the Deep Gnome. We avoided the fight for now and proceeded up to the Myconids, who let us in and asked us to defeat the Duergar, which we happily agreed to. We gave the poisoned Deep Gnome an elixir of poison resistance, which saved her from the poison. We then spoke to Blurg and Amelum, who said they could help us with a tadpole if we brought back specific potion ingredients from the Arcane Tower. We recruited Sovereign Glut to help us to defeat the Duergar, then we made our way back to them. I tried to sneak up on them, but once again we were caught, having to fight them at an awkward angle. This didn't cause too many problems, and we defeated them quite easily. Glut was also killed during this battle, preventing us from having to deal with him. We explored around and killed the Hooked Horrors and Fieldbro the Forgotten. After this, we went back to Myconids, who were happy we killed the Duergar, now asked us to kill Nere and bring back his head. We agreed, of course. We went to the Arcane Tower, easily destroyed the turrets with Witch Bolt, we powered the tower, looted all we could, solved the automaton's riddle, and then found the potion ingredients. We then went to fight the Minotaurs. We failed to sneak up on them, initiating combat on us while we were still making way up, which worked out perfectly for us, as they were so eager to fight us, they jumped off the cliff. One of them halved his health, getting down to us, allowing us to finish it off easily, while the other jumped from even higher, ending it all. After this, we took the potion ingredients back to Amelum, who made the potion for us to drink. We made some great saving throws to unlock newer lifted ability. Obviously though, not removing the tadpole. With everything taken care of here, we boarded the boat and crossed the underground lake. We convinced the patrol that we're meant to be there, then landed at the Absolute camp. We killed a couple of Duergar for the Ring of Invisibility, and then spoke to the Absolute General, who told us that Nere was trapped inside the rock cave. We learned from the Deep Gnomes that one of them had run away with a whole barrel of rune powder, so we went after them. Along the way, we found and defeated the Hellboars and Meragon, then proceeded to get slaughtered by 3 Ochre Jellies, which I only just managed to defeat. We found the location with the Deep Gnome and the barrel of rune powder. Astarion turned invisible and he stole the barrel, initiating this funny dialogue.
What in the hell's? Bugger it all. You moved them.
She then legged it, leaving the other gnomes behind. With the rune powder barrel, I went back to the Duergar at the tidal excavation. But before we blew up the collapse, I figured I would have an easier time killing them without Nere interfering. So I decided I would try and wipe them out. This was harder than I thought. I overestimated our power, starting the fight in the middle of them all, only to be quickly overwhelmed by their numbers. Their mind mastery turned Eldrass against us, who threw an explosive right into the middle of the group, pretty much wiping out the whole party at the same time. My second attempt, I tried having half of us on the upper level of this archway, with others on the ground. This also didn't work, as they just closed in on us and killed us without a problem. So for my third attempt, I had everyone up on the archway, which made a massive difference. I had Shadowheart cast Create Water on Thrin and the other Duergar, that collapsed, and had Astarion start combat with a lightning bolt.
You attacked someone. Only the guards are allowed to do.
Eldrass used Thunderwave on the archer that was with the group, and thanks to his safe spell ability, no one else was blown off the cliff. From here, we had perfect vantage point to deal some massive damage. Astarion cast Cloud of Daggers at the base of the ladder, forcing anyone that climbed up to take damage. Most of the enemy's first turn was spent trying to get closer, turning invisible, or shooting us with arrows, allowing us to do some great damage with very little counterattack. However, the archer we knocked down managed to land an attack on Astarion, breaking his concentration and dropping the Cloud of Daggers. But before anyone could climb up, Shadowheart managed a great fireball at the base of the ladder, doing some massive damage to the 3 down there, killing 2 of them. However, without Cloud of Daggers, one of the enemies was able to climb the ladder and do some damage to Gale and push him off the archway. Eldrass killed the enemy that pushed Gale off, and our focus shifted to defeating the 2 archers on the side attacking Gale. We managed to do some great damage, killing one with Psionic Backlash and getting the other really low. Shadowheart cast Cloud of Daggers at the base of the ladder again, but this didn't stop the Duergar warrior climbing up and taking Astarion down. The Crow finished off the other archer while Scratch revived Astarion, then Eldrass came in to Thunderwave the warrior off the ledge straight into the Cloud of Daggers. After a fireball from Shadowheart, the warrior was killed by the Cloud of Daggers on his next turn. One of our skeletons killed another that tried to climb up, leaving only a handful of stragglers remaining for us to finish with Magic Missile. This left the Scrying Eye. I failed to realize that it was weak to thunder damage, and it took me casting 2 full turns of everyone throwing everything at it, including 2 fireballs, to finally destroy it. With the Duergar defeated, we helped the gnomes by destroying the cave-in, releasing Nere and the trapped gnomes. We weren't going to let Nere kill any more gnomes, so it was time for us to finish him off. It was only him against a literal army. He didn't stand a chance and didn't even survive one round. We leveled up after this fight, leveling us up to level 7, giving us access to even more juicy spells. For Eldrazi, I gave him Firewall and Resilient Sphere, Astarion, Blight and Dimension Door, Shadowheart, Ice Storm and Stoneskin, Gale, Summon Minor Elemental and Evard's Black Tentacles, and now it was time for us to finally take on the Grym, which really didn't do much for us except for give us XP, as none of the items we could forge what could be used by us. We defeated the animated armor and fire methods, and then retrieved the laughing amulet from the lava pools, then continued to the Grym after a long rest and started the forge. Before activating the lava, I positioned everyone in the 4 circles for the fight to come. I turned the lava valve and released the Grym. I had Gale furthest away from the Grym, so I had him attack to get its attention. I had everyone else cast haste on themselves just in case. I thought Resilient Sphere might help, and I had Eldris cast it on Gale, which I think stopped the Grym from targeting him and charged at Shadowheart. Thankfully though, it didn't attack her. I then had Astarion use Eldritch Blast to get the Grym's attention from it, and Eldrazi cast Mage Hand to help with pulling levers. The Grym left Shadowheart in pursuit of Astarion, having just enough movement to stop on the Forge's hammer, allowing Astarion to pull the lever and do some massive damage to the Grym. Though now it was no longer overheated, we needed more lava. So I had Astarion rush over to the valve. He couldn't open it on this turn, but thankfully the Grym had to use the turn getting up. The sphere on Gale wasn't proving suitable, so I had to cancel it, which allowed Gale to cast Black Tentacles on the Grym's location in hopes to slow it down. Astarion activated the lava again, so when the Grym stood up, it overheated again. And luckily, it was standing in the same, allowing the Mage Hand to pull the lever and do another big hit to it. This caused lava methods to spawn, which I quickly took care of with Gale, Astarion, and Eldrazi. The Grym was now attacking the Mage Hand and no longer on the pedestal, so I had Shadowheart get its attention. However, its next move landed it too far across from the hammer. Plus, it was now starting to do AoE attacks with its stomp. Gale also cast Mage Hand to help pull levers while the Grym continued to attack Shadowheart and Astarion. Astarion used Dimension Door to get him and Shadowheart back on the opposite circle, while a Mage Hand activated the lava. The Grym started going for Gale, so I had Astarion get its attention, luring it back across the middle, perfectly placed for another hit with a hammer, bringing it down to a tiny bit of health. Thankfully, when it stood up, it overheated again in the lava, allowing the Mage Hand to pull the lever one final time, destroying the Grym and leading us to victory. And that wraps up Act 1 for our full wizard party. My god, what a mission. I don't think I have ever done so much in Act 1 before, and it was bloody brilliant. Now, I know I've been calling the wizards the weakest party, but apart from a few failed attempts throughout Act 1 so far, mainly due to my own error or misjudgment, the wizards have been an absolute force to be reckoned with. Obviously, their major weakness is how squishy they are, but provided no one gets close to them to do damage, they are insanely powerful. Their combination of control and AoE spells allowed them to dominate the battlefield, proving that the best defense is a fireball. The most crazy things is that having 4 wizards in my party means that I can basically have every major spell combination, set up combos between party members where it usually would have had to be done with 1 or 2 casters in a round. Now this might be a big claim, but I think by far wizards may be one of the strongest classes. And if I was to play them more optimally and better, they could easily wipe the floor in most battle situations. Though we're yet to see how Act 2 turns out. If you want to see this entire playthrough of Act 1 up until this point, the entire playthrough is up on my channel now, so you can watch it from complete start to finish. I'm super excited for Act 2, and I'm really excited for what the wizards are going to be capable of, and I hope you guys are too. If you want to follow along, I will be uploading the entire Act 2, just like I did with Act 1 on my channel, so if you want to follow along with the adventures, subscribe, and I'll see you there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Dude, he's so close. Let's fucking go. That was so easy.